Thank you for joining us. And if this is your second time to join us, I want to thank you for being here for our premiere. We got lots of great feedback and views off the recording, and we appreciate you so much. This broadcast is brought to you by the volunteer team at Convention of State Michigan. This is Convention of States Michigan News Live, and I am Robin Riddell, the State Communications Coordinator. I would like to bring in today our State Director. I've added her to this. There she is. And we'll take Marilyn out. Marilyn, I'll let you take yourself out. This is Sarah Santana. She is the State Director here in Michigan, and she's going to tell us what's been going on with COS here in Michigan the last couple of weeks.
All right, the Michigan team was back at the Capitol on January 21st. We were talking to legislators on both sides of the aisle about Convention of States and 34 ready legislation essential to ensuring Michigan is prepared to attend an Article 5 convention. More trips to Lansing are planned in the coming weeks and months, and all volunteers are welcome to attend. We encourage you to attend. If you would like to take part in one of our Lansing trips, simply go to conventionestates.com/MIvolunteer and fill out the application to be a volunteer activist. This week, COS Michigan rolled out a new update to the Michigan website that includes new public resources and an entire section on what you can do. So you can check out all the new information at conventionestates.com/MI.
Well, that was quick. All right, let's go to the national news. All right. It has been so busy for all of the volunteers across the United States. I'm showing you a slide of activity that is current for this year. In the past 2 weeks, 5 additional states have introduced the COS resolution. That includes Ohio, Iowa, Washington, Vermont, and Massachusetts. That brings our total with active legislative activity right now to 15. Now, Sarah mentioned 34 ready, and I'm going to read this because it's a long one. Other states have identical or similar legislation. They might not be calling it 34 ready, but it is the criminal penalty resolution and a commissioner selection. I'm going to say bill and resolution and get them mixed. It's a commissioner selection resolution and a criminal penalty bill. And currently 11 states are actively pursuing legislation like 34 ready, and this includes South Carolina, Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Maryland, Montana, Mississippi, New Hampshire, Nebraska, and Maryland. What this all says to me is we're coming for you. We're coming for you. The grassroots is mobilized across the United States, and we're working together to make this happen. You can stay updated on our website. You'll see this, the map at the bottom of the front page, and that is updated on a regular basis. Did you want to add anything to that, Sarah?
There's going to be tons of upcoming hearings. Just keep an eye out. We may mention some of them on our social media. You can keep an eye on our Facebook page and our other social media, but also our website. Just there's so many states that have active legislation right now. There's something happening every week. We had several hearings this last week. We're going to have more hearings this next week. So it's just a really exciting time for Convention of States on a national level, as well as in Michigan.
Absolutely. Well, let's go on and talk about a few hot topics. I would like to bring in our third person to join us in here. This is Shay Bonhag, one of our volunteers from up north, as we call it. And Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you for what's the latest talk. What's hot in the news this week that we get to contribute our 5 cents worth?
Absolutely. Well, what's hot right now is Doge. Doge is everywhere. You're hearing about Doge, all the podcasts, all the news organizations. So it's been about 2.5 weeks since Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, was created, and it's wasted no time in shining light on various areas it believes to be inefficient or wasteful. One such area is thousands of government buildings that lay vacant or largely unused. Elon Musk, who is heading up Doge, took to X to inform the public that, quote, not even one government building was found to be even half occupied. 4 days later, he added that some government buildings, including some in DC, have been taken over by squatters. According to Musk, roughly $15 billion a year are spent on utilities and maintenance of unused U.S. government buildings, both here and abroad. On a different note, Musk announced on Monday, February 3rd, that USAID and other government agencies have been funding various media groups around the world. That same day, the Doge subcommittee in the House of Representatives invited leaders from NPR and PBS to address biased news coverage at a public hearing in March. The report published on the House website stated that both NPR and PBS spend hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government each year. As the deep dive into USAID heated up, the White House published a short list titled, "At USAID, Waste and Abuse Runs Deep." There were a lot of examples given on that particular list. Some notable things were $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia, $70,000 for musical production in Ireland, $2.5 million for electric vehicles for Vietnam, $47,000 for an opera in Colombia, $32,000 for comic books in Peru, as well as some sex changes in Guatemala, and the list goes on, including funding tourism in Egypt. We even saw some references to COVID and Al-Qaeda. It was very exciting. So I want to go to our panel. Let's talk about this. We're diving into so many different areas, and they've barely started to scratch the surface. What seems this seems to be very much like a government audit. And I thought of you a lot, Shay, when I was going through these lists, because you've spent so much time with all the articles you've written for us looking at the little wastes.
I know.
And now we're seeing even bigger wastes, or even just not even the waste, because some of these things are wastes and some of them are just misuse or lack of use. I mean, we have empty government buildings that now have squatters in them, and I'm sure we're paying to keep up those buildings.
Of course.
So, right. What areas have you been surprised, if any, that have come to light through all of this?
I haven't been surprised at all about any of it. I've just been more surprised that it's made it to the public. The fact that, Senator Paul comes out with the Festivus every year, and he outlines all the things that we're spending money for that are kind of crazy. And that's just literally, from what I'm seeing so far, is just the tip of the iceberg. Because what Doge is finding out as they start diving into more and more of the details, they find out all these crazy things that are being funded. And no one agreed to any of this. This is just all happening. I don't know if you saw the interview with Senator Rubio, well, now the Secretary Rubio, who's the interim director of U.S. aid, right? Mm-hmm. And he said a lot of times the stuff that they're funding in these programs through U.S. aid is counterproductive to what they're trying to do with the Department of State. So it's like, Oh my goodness. So the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and we got both things going. I mean, that's the worst case, right? It's just the worst case. I mean, we don't have a constant, consistent focus forward, even if we thought some of this stuff would be worthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, the more you expose it to transparency, the more that people see it, the more clear it's going to become that, wait a minute, nobody in their right minds wants that funded. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And this isn't a political issue. This is one of just, how do you want your taxpayer money spent? I mean, if anything, I'd like to support what the Department of State has always done, trying to build relationships, and I don't want us finding another group that's undermining that. So I'm not happy. I'm happy in one sense of getting it all out there, but what it says is a clear story here that is not what we want to hear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about you, Robin?
Well, I'm thrilled to see the Band-Aid ripped off and all of this being shown. In doing my research, you pointed to the White House statement that it's on there. And then as you go out and branch out beyond what the White House says and what the media is saying, they're equivocating and detracting and dismissing. And to me, this is one of the biggest reasons why I got involved in Convention of States. Our debt is $36 trillion. Every baby born today is born into debt slavery. That is not the country that I grew up in. And to see this ripped open, I mean, the vacant buildings, that's just not good business sense. If you're not using the building, sell it, demolish it, tear it down. I know that idea is upsetting to people, and people may lose jobs over this, but we cannot sustain ourselves like this. I speak out so that the grandchildren that I've not met yet will have a better life and not be saddled with all of this debt. It's disruptive. I get that. But at the pace that government has made change in my lifetime, it's kind of refreshing to see the Band-Aid torn off and to see the real numbers. There's waste out there. And the second part of this, I mean, I'm not unfriendly or anything towards other countries and civilizations, but I do think we need to take care of American people first. Our education program has fallen apart. In following social media in my own little community, I see so many people asking for help with food, asking for help with rent, with basic needs. They don't have it. It has grown over these last several years. I laughed the other day, I bought eggs. In the last month, every time I have purchased eggs, it has started a conversation in the grocery store about the price of eggs. And I watched one young mother stand there. She said, I have two hungry teenage boys and I rely on these eggs for protein. She said, I can't really afford to buy this. And she stood there like putting the eggs in and taking them back. So we're spending money on things in other countries to promote another agenda. We're not taking care of things at home. So while this is uncomfortable for some, I'm happy to see it happen.
Yep.
Absolutely. And you know, that analogy of well, and just what you were saying about the government buildings. Why do we have empty government buildings? And this isn't a new problem. If you go back to the archives of the Obama administration's White House, which, by the way, there are archived websites for each of the past administrations, at least in the past current administrations, he actually had a plan for trying to get rid of these problems. At that time, I want to say I was looking at it yesterday, there were 12,000 I believe empty buildings or not used buildings that were just excess. And I think that number may be lower now, but it's hard because they have different categories. There's the partly used, the ones we're using 10%, the ones that are completely empty. You know, are you what counts as a building? You know, if you have a shed, is that a building? It's like you look at these things and it's, oh my gosh, it makes your head hurt. And yet we're so in debt, like you said, Robin. And if we were talking about a normal individual who went to someone for financial help because they were deeply in debt, they would, the counselor would say, hey, you have 3 cars. If you are deeply in debt, you need to get rid of some of these cars. Well, you have an extra house, sell the house, right? This is what any normal individual has to do if they get themselves into the hole when it comes to debt. And that's what has to happen with our federal government. These are just, they're just logical things to be doing. Now, when it comes to things like the media, I have to say that's the one that raised my eyebrows a little bit. Growing up, you know, there was programming on PBS and you knew it was government funded. And I didn't think about it a lot, but it does present a bit of a question now, I think, for us when it comes to federal funds going to media. And I think when it first started, there was probably an aspect where it's like the government helping fund the railroad, right? You're allowing people an avenue to something that is new and uncharted territory. And that was very much a public service. Now the whole society has changed where this isn't something that people don't have easy access to, or at least not in the way that it was when it originally became public funded. So I think that's an interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing more on that conversation with regard to, should the federal government have its fingers in the media and funding the media at all, or should this be something where, for the sake of freedom of speech and not having the government's interference, we should not have any funding of any kind of media entity? What do you think?
Well, see, I think you're on the right track. It seems to me that what's happening in U.S. Aid is I think Jim mentioned it. It's just the tip of the iceberg, and that's what I'm afraid of. If we're really trying to think in terms of limiting term limits and balancing the budget and so forth, and that's really important to us, and I think it is for a lot of people in the United States. What we're seeing is unleashed spending of all these things. So why do we have all these buildings? Why do we have all these programs? Why do we really need all those things? You probably saw the note from Betsy DeVos, and you can argue about that, but she's a local Michigan person, and her comment is that the Department of Education is so broken that she doesn't know how to address it. Right? There's a case where the government has taken on a new role of really working through the Department of Education. Is that necessary? And should we be, as a convention of states, shouldn't we be pulling that back and saying, well, we don't really need all of these things to happen because we've got a local government and we've got state government whose role it really is ultimately to manage these things as closer to us as the people. So I think the USAID information is just the tip of the iceberg. The fact that the buildings are vacant is the tip of the iceberg that we're seeing. And we've never really seen it before and never put it together in the kind of way that Doge has taken it. And every time they touch something, they're now in Treasury and they can't get access to something or another. Somebody's upset with access. Well, I mean, the reality is they don't want to share transparency, what is actually happening. The more we know, the better it is for us long term.
Absolutely. And I just want to add something for clarification here. Shay, you said U.S. aid, and to me, we know that's an acronym, USAID, but it makes it sound like we're giving aid. And actually, this stands for the United States Agency for International Development.
Right.
International development. I will go back and say that with the problems that we have here in America with education, with hunger and lack of housing, I think this money ought better be spent on taking care of Americans and bringing them up to the standards that they deserve to have.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
agreed.
Well, Shay, I think you had done some research. You want to, on a topic, you want to kind of talk to us about what you've been working on.
One of the other hot topics that people are talking about right now is this whole early out process, where President Trump is offering, depending on the numbers, I think the latest one was 60,000 employees in the federal government were going to take him up on the offer, his offer being, I'll pay you through September. You don't have to work, but I'll pay you through September on early out, and you'll be leaving the workforce. And so that there's been a lot of concerns about that. But what I was thinking about was, has that been done successfully in companies or in other governmental organizations? And I started looking at the list, and lots of people have done this. I mean, IBM had a similar kind of program that they ran. Now, of course, they kept some of the people were given an opportunity to be consultants afterwards, so they wouldn't lose their senior people, because that's the downside to it, is the people that are going to leave are the ones that are the brightest and the smartest and so forth and so on, and all your talent is going to leave. Obviously, 60,000 people out of 2 million is not everybody leaving, right? So it's, first of all, that's a fallacy. It's just a few that will be leaving, and probably so. You'd probably be losing some people that you'd like to keep hold of. But on the other hand, the net result is pretty positive. GE did the same thing. Ford's done it. I didn't realize that, but they actually did that. And I know that many of those companies that have done that, they look at it in the long term rather than the short term. Yes, they might lose some people, but you can also bring in some consultants to help you figure out what it is that you're missing, and you can carry forward. But the end result is that you've got a smaller workforce as a result. And I think that's what he's trying to do here, is really just get this. I mean, that's what Doge is trying to do as well, right? Reduce the size of the government. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, I see buyouts happening in the workforce all the time. I mean, I grew up in the automotive area of our great state of Michigan, and buyouts were pretty normal. I'm watching some of the media is now offering buyouts for meteorologists. I think they've been given a generous offer.
Yeah, I mean, who in their right minds gives them how many months is that?
It's like 6 or 7 months.
And you don't have to work, by the way.
Now, you did see that a judge has put a stop to this until there's a hearing and changed the date on it, and all of that. All of this brouhaha to me is just people who they want the status quo to remain the same because they're on a good path and things are being taken care of, while the rest of us haven't had a clue what they were or weren't doing. And now we're beginning to know. I think, again, this is just the beginning of this.
So I think the statement that you made is the important part, is that this same tactic has been used by GM and Ford and lots of other companies to accomplish, hey, wait a minute, we need to reduce our workforce. And this is a good way to do it because it gives people the option to buy into that and go that direction. Oh, and Jim just writes 60,000 have agreed to take the buyout. So
lots of good comments from Jim coming up in here in the side. So to my two partners here, we've got 5 minutes left in our broadcast, and I know we have one more question. Sarah, would it be all right if we save it? Because we really want to put together a program that comes in at just under 30 minutes. And
all right.
Well, we can always come back next week.
She's like, yeah. All right, we'll save it. You guys can look forward to hearing about Iowa Doge next time.
Fantastic. We can't wait.
That's a great story. I think we need to introduce that here in Michigan, but we'll let everybody look it up. Okay, let's move on to our final segment here that we're calling, well, it's not our final. It's your turn. What are the kind of things that you can do? Well, it looks like my slide deck was loaded backwards. We have another event coming up. This does happen monthly on the first Saturday morning of the state. This is in Monroe. So if you are in the southeast part of the state and you want to meet with some of our grassroots volunteers, have a discussion, ask questions, you could go there to Monroe for breakfast. Just drop in, no reservation required. When the weather breaks, our number of events will definitely increase as we all come out from underneath the sheets of ice that we're buried in. But you can find this on our website. It's conventionofstates.com/Michigan-events. Something else you can do. If you have not signed the petition, grab your phone, grab this QR code, put it on your phone, and sign the petition. When you do, it will notify your legislator that they have another supporter in their district that supports this movement. It will also help you get regular email updates from us, and you get access to training and volunteer opportunities. So lots of opportunity for you in that one. This year, we are asking people to just do one thing to help this movement. So if you haven't done so already and you're watching, hit the like button or the heart button or, I don't know, the wow button and show us a little love. If you're on YouTube watching us, subscribe to our channel so that you get notifications when we're coming back on. So please hit the like button. Show us a little love here for all our hard work and sleepless nights. We are on social media, so you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Rumble, LinkedIn, and X. We're more active on some platforms than other, but we are there for whatever suits you. And to learn more about us, you definitely want to grab this page. I'll jump to the contact us if you have a question. Contact us at askmi@cosaction.com. And I think that brings us to all of our upcoming news. I'm going to do a pass around here and get some final thoughts, starting with Sarah.
There is a lot of distraction going on right now in our country, I would say, with there's so much news. I was telling my daughter the other day, it's been 15 minutes and nothing new has happened. I'm feeling bored. It's kind of insane right now. And I think because it's moving so fast, we can feel a little run over by a train. And that can make us feel a little sluggish to get out and do anything, because it's kind of like, what's going to happen next? Do I want to try to do anything? What I have to say is, yes, you do. At a certain point, we have to say, Doge in Washington, D.C. are doing what they're doing, right? Our Michigan legislature is actually doing a whole bunch of its own things right now. We haven't gone into that, but there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in Lansing. As a people, we the people, it's our job to get up right now and get convention of states going. We need to engage in our communities. We need to push things forward, because everything that they're doing in DC right now can get undone. Every single thing. There's nothing they're doing. There's nothing they're uncovering that can't be back in place in 5 years, in 8 years, you name it, that can all come back. But with convention estates, we can permanently solve the structural problems that got us in this situation. So please try to ignore the train a little bit and figure out, how can you engage? How do you want to engage? How do you want to make a difference in the country for the next 4 years?
Shay, real quick, like we've hit our 30-minute mark. What final thoughts do you have?
Just that convention estate is the long-term solution. And the only people who can really make this happen are the individual states. And it's up to us to make that happen in Michigan. And, you know, the work that you're doing to get everybody down to Lansing on a regular basis, to remind people that 34 now or 34 ready, and eventually signing the resolution, you know, that's where we need to be.
And from me, I will reiterate the same thing. I call this the people's movement. We cannot sit back and depend on the government to fix things. That's what got us here. We will be the people to get us out. So join us, learn more, ask questions, and stay with the fight. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.